As part of our series, Everybody Has a Story, it gives me great pleasure to interview Luba Olenski today to tell her remarkable story.
I wasn't obedient because whatever my mother said, I had to do. She took me to undress for sun rays, which is forbidden today.
I know.
Yeah. I was pale. My two brothers, I had two younger brothers, and they had whooping coughs. They developed whooping coughs, and my father got it from them. So she couldn't keep me home. So she sent me on a dacha. You know what a dacha is?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, you know what a dacha is. A holiday place for children, for girls, I think, in Kalautova. And she kept bombarding me with
Bananas.
With bananas.
Yes.
And I couldn't eat them. But my mother came to pick me up, so I had all the bananas in one day.
She was sick.
And I was sick. And
she was a very good little girl. Yeah. She really was a good little girl.
Yeah, and my mother thought I had appendicitis. And the bananas. And she couldn't take me home because my brothers and my father had whooping cough. So she took me to a hospital, and then she sent me to she comes from a city called Kedan.
Yes.
Kedania. Yes, and then they realized that when I got diarrhea and all this, that it was the bananas. Yeah, and bananas were very expensive in Lithuania. They didn't grow anywhere near.
No.
They had to be imported. Anyway.
So your family was quite affluent.
Yes, my father. It must have been a matchmaking shidduch. My father and my mother, but and he didn't want to be a son-in-law on Kest. You know what Kest is?
Of course.
Yeah, you do. How do you explain it in English?
That your father-in-law supported you, and you ate at different places on different days.
No, that was when he was in yeshiva.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in Israel for the first time with my 3 children and my husband, I said I can't leave Israel without making a donation to Slobodka. That's where my father was studying.
The yeshiva there.
Yeah, yeshiva. Yeah. Slobodka yeshiva was a misnagdische. You know what misnagdim?
Yes, as opposed to mitnagdim, not Hasidim.
Yeah,
not Hasidim.
לא היו חסידים בליטואניה.
No, Poland היו חסידים. בפולין היו חסידים.
בפולין היו. In Lithuania there was no such thing as Hasidim. So, and I don't know what his name was Alta, because when he wanted all his, as he grew up, he wanted to join the Slobodka Yeshiva, and he was born in Poland. And he smuggled the border, and he went in and accepted a new name, Frank. My name was Frank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So his name was Alta before?
Alta. But I don't know the name Alta. Is it because they said if somebody is sick, they give him a name Alta, yes?
Yes. If somebody is sick, if somebody in the family was but that was a very Hasidic custom.
Yeah.
They gave him another name. My father was also like that. They gave him another name, and to sort of give them another life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alta means to get old. I don't know.
To get older.
Alta, yeah.
Alta.
Anyway, you Altas in the Rosh Yeshiva from it's called Hebron now in Bnei Brak. I went there and I found out, and I took a taxi. We took a taxi, the 3 of us. And I said, are you Alta's daughter? Oh my God, he said, he he had tag. You know what tag is?
Of course, he went to different families on different nights
Three
because they didn't have a
three-
family.
three days a week he ate tag in his mother's place. The Rosh Yeshiva from Slobodka.
Yeah. They went to different people's homes.
Yeah.
That's how they looked after the students who came from other cities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the Berzhenitzes. You know what Berzhenitzes are? No. The Berzhenitzes is in English.
Bachelors?
No, people that are traveling and stopping in other countries. What do you call it? I can't think of what. I forget names. Let me think. He was not. A lot of people came to Kovno because there was the Japanese consul
Right.
that gave visas, and they are called not foreigners, refugees.
Oh, refugees.
Refugees,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
refugees, and the Lithuanian Jews accepted them because they are different Jews than other people from all over the world. They came, and a lot of them survived because of the Japanese consul
Sugihara.
Sugihara. Sugihara, and they I believe they stood in a queue when he was arrested. Sugihara. He still managed to give his stamp from the train. Yeah, he saved about 8,000 Jews.
Yeah. They went to Japan, and from there they went to Shanghai.
Yeah, Shanghai, and then I found out. Well, in 39, I was 8 years old, and I didn't know anything about my cousins in Poland. My father comes from Poland, and he comes from a family. His mother died at childbirth, and his sister brought him up. She was almost like a generation ahead of him, because in those days they had children, and the older one helped the younger one, and anyway, and he came to Lithuania, and he went into Slobodka Yeshiva, and he got his two nephews. Yeah, my cousin in Sydney married in 39 in Sydney. He married Eva. Her name was Eva, and he went to Australia, to Sydney, because he had a friend there. He said he can find him work. He couldn't make a living, and he's supposed to bring out his wife, but his wife, he didn't manage. The war broke out in Poland. There was no war in Lithuania. Hitler attacked Poland, and in 39, and they smuggled. She brought two nephews with her, and she wanted to go to join her husband in Australia, so she finished up getting the visa from the Sugihara, and she came. She left in March. Kovno, our house. My parents took in the two nephews and her in our house. Compared to the others, we lived. I didn't know that it's such a thing as comfort. I had a toilet. We had a toilet in the house, which most people did not have.
No.
And the war broke out the 22nd of June, 41, and my father employed his two nephews. He had a young boy that he employed before, a young man, and plus his two nephews. and he opened up another business in Vilnius because there was no border anymore. He had another cigarette shop with shutafim. Yeah. And when she left, my father made a shidduch with his nephew, Israelik, they called him, with the Rosh Yeshiva's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Slabotka Rosh Yeshiva, which wasn't the same man as in Hebron. And that night was supposed to be the wedding. And they knocked on our door, and Russians came in to arrest my father, because in the Russian politics, you're not allowed, every business belongs to the government. You're not allowed to employ, that means you made money out of your workers. You use them up. So my father and my mother said to one of the nephews, Hona, actually he survived. He said to him, she said to him, go and tell uncle. He went for Shachrit. He was in shul. He was very religious, my father. Coming from Slabotka, he has to be. It's in the book. Yes, see, that's my father. This one, the Geram.
Beautiful.
Yeah, look at it, at that yeshiva. And you're not allowed to have employment. It belongs to the government. So she told him, go and tell uncle not to come to the house, go straight to Slabotka. That's where the wedding took place.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about it. I was sleepy, and I went with my parents, and my father's sister who brought him up. It's a funny story. She actually, my husband, I survived with the people from Bryansk, yeah, and she had a son-in-law from Bryansk. She had 2 daughters and 9 boys.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my God, yes, and she died and she went to the toilet outside, and the only bomb that fell in Bryansk killed her.
Yeah.
And they said they are not going to tell my father about his sister. And when he saw the photographs with the unshaven faces,
He knew.
he said, why are they unshaven? What's the Troja? What's the
mourning?
The mourning? And he said, well, they had to tell him that his sister was killed. And he said Shiva, and of course, and he took charge of the boys, the 2 boys, and he made a shidduch with the older one. And that night was supposed to be the wedding. And the sister's husband came with a daughter and a son to the wedding. And I believe they told him, maybe you should go to Poland, to Białystok, because there's no borders. You could travel. Everything belonged to Russia, because Hitler and Stalin made a pact that this part of Poland belongs to Russia, and Warsaw and Lodz belongs to Germany.
Yes.
And my mother took me to the airport, train station. and she told me in which compartment my father is sitting, and I went, and she gave me the little chamudan. What do you call it, chamudan? A case, the case.
Yeah.
The travel
Not like
case.
an overnight case.
Overnight, yes. And when the Russians came to compromise, to take my parents' business away, they said you can be as an employer, but you have to work on Saturday. And my father wouldn't work on Saturday, so he wasn't an employer. And my mother went then, and she took revenge in the money. Yeah, she took revenge, and she made me such beautiful outfits by a special dressmaker. I was 10 years old, and she gave my father a fair coat. I mean, the lining was fair. And she bought new furniture. And
she spent the money before the Russians got it.
Yeah,
Were you afraid ever? Did you feel fear, or was it all normal?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. And his brother-in-law said, if you come to Poland for a few days, for a few weeks, they might forget about you.
Yeah.
The Russians.
Yeah. But they didn't.
And my father took the advice. And my mother said, what's going to happen to Libale? She can't survive a summer without a holiday. Little would she believe how I survived without food.
How do you think you did that? How do you think that happened?
I don't know.
I mean, where did you take the strength to go day after day? You were told me. You were pushed off the train on the way to Treblinka.
Yes.
And you were in the forest or in the fields for 5 weeks.
Yeah, 5.5 weeks.
Yeah, and you must have been frightened. You were only a child.
I was very frightened, and the old women, told me. They left me the food, but the baked potatoes.
Yeah. The Polish women.
The Polish women.
Yes.
And the young boy said, "Why can't we give her away to the Germans? We can get a kilo of sugar for her."
Wow.
Yeah, a Jew was worth a
kilo of sugar.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
How did you get through that time? What were your thoughts? Did you just block things out?
I thought I want to see my parents. I did not realize. And listen, one Saturday, the war broke out. I went for a long walk with my father. They all waited, his brother-in-law and his my cousin, the girl, that she'll look after me. She'll take me on dache. You know dache is?
Yes, a holiday.
A holiday.
Yeah.
And I was tired, and I was tired, and after Shalosh Sudot, I went to sleep. My father tucked me in. He never did it at home. And I was woken up by the sound of a bomb.
Yes.
In Bialystok. And that was from Saturday to Sunday. And on Friday the Germans walked in, and they packed a shul, I didn't know, with 2,000 people, women, children, and they bolted it and they put it on fire.
In Bialystok?
In Bialystok.
I didn't know that. Yes.
I was sitting there and watching the world, and I was eating poppy seeds from around the place, and she brought me food. And on this third day, she said, "Oh, you have to go. The Germans they all heard about you." And they're searching every house. I said, "I haven't got where to go. Please keep me." They said, no, but before you go, I want your clothes. I've got a girl at the same age.
The beautiful ones your mother made you?
Yes, the ones my mother made you. dressmaker made it.
Yes.
And she took away, and I didn't grow much yet. And she took away my clothes and she gave me schmattes. And I was walking around in those schmattes, and I couldn't wear the shoes. She took away mine, and she gave me shoes with heels. I've never worn heels, so the heels, I was wearing them here on the shoulder.
You used to sleep in the forest or in the field.
Yeah, I slept in the forest. I was feeling more. Because the jacket was on. Oh, you don't know the jacket.
Yeah, they gave you the jacket when you jumped off the train, when they pushed you off the train.
Yes, she gave me Dvora. Her brother is the one that announced, brothers and sisters, you should all know we're not going to a labor camp. We're going to an extermination camp in Treblinka. Nobody comes out alive. Yes, but such a sentence, and the brother of my cousin's wife, her name was Luba. She committed suicide in the ghetto. She threw herself down from the third floor. Yes. I didn't understand what it means, and she threw herself down. And I stayed with her brother and her sister-in-law. And because it was her brother that made the announcement.
He had come from somewhere, hadn't he? He had been somewhere and
he
come
had
back.
been in Warsaw Ghetto.
Yes.
And he passed by Treblinka on the way to Białystok.
Yes.
Correct. And he could see that people, only corpses are coming out of there. And in spite of that, Mottl was the leather manufacturer, well, for the Germans. He was the first one to jump. The men that made the announcement jumped, none of them. And this one, and I was sitting with the children, and I wanted to know what Mottl, the outcome of Mottl's jumping. So I got up from the children and I said, look, what happened to him? Oh my God, he hit his head on a post and he
was killed.
He was killed. I mean, he didn't get up. And all of a sudden they realized that I'm standing and taking up space. And they said, little girl, what are you doing here? You're taking up, let the grown-ups jump. All I said is, how do you know? You want to jump? You have to jump now. And his wife, Mottl's wife, Dvora, he took off the jacket before he jumped. She gave me his jacket. She gave me his jacket, and that jacket saved my life. She gave me the jacket.
And she pushed you?
No, she didn't push me.
Somebody pushed you, though?
Yes. No, two boys said, if that girl jumps, we'll look after her. Two teenagers. And I don't know who helped me. Somebody lifted me up because the windows were very high in a cattle train.
Yeah.
I was in Yad Vashem and I saw it.
Yes.
And all of a sudden I was wearing a big jacket because Mottl was a big man and I'm a skinny little, and I'm standing on the platform and the two boys just jumped and they said, you have to do it now. And they hit my hand to let go of the
rail. Yeah.
The rail. And I let go and the wind carried me and they shot. The bullets were going between my legs. Somehow, as I said, God looked after me. Somebody looked after me. When the Polish woman woke me up from my disorientation, and I couldn't, she couldn't believe that I'm not wounded, because they were shooting from the roof, the Germans, of the train. Anybody who jumped, they tried to hit with a bullet. And she said, look, there's your Židkes. Židkes means you bloody Jews, you're Jews. And ran to them. She should have been qualified as what do you call it, on a Gentile? Yes. But I don't know who it was. I don't know her name, but she did wake me up. Otherwise they cleaned the railway line, and whoever was still alive, they finished them off. And when I ran to the forest, and I kept running in those days, even without the consciousness, I saw that there's 4 of them. 2 other Jews also jumped from the same train, and those 2 boys were among them. Those were the 2 boys that promised to look after me. And overnight, we were sitting in the forest, and they kept asking me, have you got something to exchange for food? I said, I don't know, have a look at the jacket. Because the wife of the man that hit his head on the post, and her brother announced what's happening in Treblinka. Nobody comes out alive. She gave me his jacket, her husband's. And it was much too big for me. He was a big man, and I was a skinny little girl. And I said, I don't know, you have a look. And when they touched the lining, they could see that there's something valuable in it. And they said, yes, you have. And they said, they made a program that the next day, when the sunrise goes up, and we hear the first transport going to Treblinka, because there were 60,000 Jews in Bialystok. And I had no choice. I went through the whole village, and then it was nighttime. The whole day I was spent chasing those 4 men, and when nighttime I had no choice. I walked away from the village, and I found the first forehead, the first, what do you call it, a bushland, a forest. I spent at the edge of the bush of the forest. I spent the day, and then in the morning I started looking for them again. 3 days I looked for them, and always I was half an hour behind them. Oh, they were here half an hour ago, they were here 20 minutes ago. I could not find. Another night I spent in the forest by myself, and I was scared of the cork, the bark of the trees, because it looked like worms at nighttime, and that's when I became hungry. I was already hungry in the ghetto. I didn't have enough what the people looked after me gave me. Anyway, 3 days. On the 3rd day, they were caught last night and taken to the Germans. And then I knew I was the only Jew in the world. And I did not know how to behave. I couldn't imagine that people were so bad. So I went out it was potato digging times. So I went into the potato diggers, and a lot of women were digging potatoes. Potato digging time, and the old women were sorry for me. They pitied me, and they said, when we have lunch, whatever is left, you can have. Sometimes it was baked potatoes in the ashes, just plain potatoes with the skin on. And the young boys said, let's take her to the Germans. We can get a kilo of sugar for her. And they said, leave her alone. She's done nothing wrong. She's a child. Anyway, and when potato digging time finished, the fields were all empty, and I had nothing to look forward to in the morning. And I was going again in the villages. And one woman, as I said yesterday, took me in. When I come to feed the pigs, I'll bring you some food. And after 3 days, she said, oh, everybody heard about you. You're the girl that everybody heard. I want you to go. And I started begging her, keep me, I haven't done nothing wrong. It didn't help, but I want your clothes. I've got a girl of the same age, and I don't want her to know where the clothes come from. Anyway, I gave away my clothes. I had no choice. And she gave me schmattes up to the ground and shoes that I couldn't wear. And that's where my bad feet started. And anyway, and that's when I was still going weeks and weeks. I thought, and those women, when they were digging potatoes, said, look, there's a haystack. If you go in the haystack, you'll be warmer, because I didn't have the jacket anymore. So they sent me to the haystack, and I must have fallen asleep. And all of a sudden, I hear this noise of an animal, and I thought wolves came to eat me, and they specially sent me there to be eaten up by wolves. And when I ran out of the haystack, I saw it's a cow eating the hay. I'm a city girl. You know, I was not a country, we used to go on holidays, but we used to go, my father, we had a special heating place that we can put at Shulington. Yeah. Anyway, so I started walking again, and walked, and I could see there's no end to it. Winter is already autumn, and the nights are cold, and I've got no jacket, and I'm short-sleeved. And then I went into the end of the village, a house standing by itself, and she said, come in, child, I'll give you something hot to eat. And she was breastfeeding a baby. And 3 boys came in. You keep the Jewess. We're going to bring the elders of the village. It's always the elders of the village. It's called a saltis. A saltis. I didn't know. And we'll take her to the Germans. And she said, she started crossing herself. Look what you've done. Now they're going to kill me and my baby. Anyway, so I ran out, and I kept running through puddles, to water, and the 3 boys were after me, and it was a moonlight, so clear. And when I got to the forest, and I could see that the boys are not chasing me anymore, I went into the forest, and I've made my decision that tomorrow I'm going to give myself up. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to be sent off to a camp. I thought it was lucky, because there are a lot of Jews together. And then it woke me up. I must have fallen off asleep, and the bells were ringing, so I knew it's Sunday. And when I'm walking down the hill towards the village, like it wasn't a proper hill, but it was just not a smooth. I met an old man. He said, you are the girl, everybody heard about you. You know there are Jews in the forest? I couldn't believe what he said. I thought he said, and they said if you wait by the well, they'll come and collect you in the evening. And I thought he was sending Germans for me, so I didn't trust him. When I met another old man, also early morning prayers, he goes to church. Oh, the sons of Yankel are there. The Yankeluki, they call them. They are the sons of Yankels. And that actually turned out that it was my husband and his two brothers. And they had a cousin, a woman. And I was waiting by the well, and I could see, people didn't see me because I was behind the, what do you call it, kshakes, hiding me, little trees, what do you call bushes. I saw them, and they took water, women and men, and I couldn't wait till evening to see what. And when I heard men's voices talking, I thought it was Germans. It sounded like Jewish, and I'd forgotten Jewish. I was 5.5 weeks, and Jewish language was so strange to me. But when I saw them, how they were dressed, I knew that they were not Germans. And they were Jews. One of them was the brother of my husband. And they took me to a woman who cooked for them. And they gave me something hot to eat. I was that hungry. I didn't eat for days. Probably since I was separated from the 4 men. And they said the king is going to get food. I believed them, the king. And I fell asleep at the fire. And then they woke me, the king is here. I stood up and I stood up straight, and I didn't know whether I bowed for him or not. I didn't know what you should do for. And when I saw how he's dressed, that was my future husband. Anyway, he had a look at me, and he touched my ribs, and he said, "She'll live," And then he ordered the women to wash my hair. It wasn't washed for 5.5 weeks or more. And another woman, another one of the group to prick my feet of pus because I was walking barefoot, and then they cut the tvua. You know what the tvua is? Wheat. They cut the wheat, and it was very prickly with a shortcut. And yes, and I had pus in my feet. And then I became one of them. I still spent a year with them. And at once, I don't know, do you know Goldie Kellman? Yeah? Well, I was with her mother, with Goldie's mother. She was the big Luba, and I was the little Luba. Yes, and I was with, and they asked, when the Russians joined the Jewish partisans, they took all the men, and they left the family, the families that are not useful to them, they left them behind. And I was supposed to be in one of the families, but Luba said, if little Luba can come with me. She wanted a protector, And I said, okay. And we walked one night 30 kilometers. I don't know how I did it, seeing how useless I am now. But we walked 30 kilometers a night, and we came to a new position. And yes, the Russians did burn bridges. he made everything, they made a lot of, self-destructing. And I was a year with her, and there was another family. And then we joined again the families, and Luba had a cousin, Toba. Yeah. And we spent a few months with the partisans, maybe a few weeks, and then we came to the rest of them. And they're all Jews from Bryansk, 75 of them, in the forest. Yeah. Then I found out that for winter they were digging underground. What do you call it?
Tunnels.
Bunkers.
Oh.
Yeah, bunkers. But you can only have. You can. First of all, the soil has to be taken away, far away, not to leave any marks where we are. And the bunkers, and we try to put the topsoil, the top grass on top. But in winter time it melted from the breathing of the people. So the forest guard, he walks around, and he gave us away. We didn't trust him. We heard footsteps, and we knew that they might go and search for it. He worked with the Germans. So we emptied the forest, and we slept under, and the snow covered it. There was the blanket of snow. Listen, and then I had to go with Luba to collect timber, branches from trees, to be able to cook at night. Luba was the cook, and I helped her peel the potatoes, something I would have never done at home. We had a nanny. Yes, and I peeled potatoes with her, and she made me the first skirt. Anyway, she was very well respected by the Russians. Before the war finished. It was, I think, in 1944, August, I think, when we came out of the ghetto, and Mrs. Finkelstein, Mattel, her name was Mattel, she had two daughters and a son. I was with the son in the same year in school after the war, and one of her daughters was my friend. And that's when we started, when we came out of the forest. It must have been August or September, because it was Yontif. I don't know how they knew it's Yontif, but it was Rosh Hashanah. And the war was not finished. The war did not finish till May 1945. And this was 1944. We were liberated, and we had the hooves of a horse not far from us, and the forests in Poland were very, very thick, one tree next to the other. And one of Mattel's daughters, the oldest one, she ran out, and she saw a man on the uniform of a Russian. So she went over to him, and she started kissing his hand, thinking he liberated us. But he was a Jew and a soldier, a Russian soldier. And he said, "Don't go back to Bryansk yet. It's not free of Germans. Wait a few more days." And I went back. We did go back. I don't know whose house we were living in, a Jewish house. And I can tell you another incident. A Jewish house, and everybody was in the same area, and 75 of us. And a woman that she met a man, and they're going to marry. They were intending to get married, and she went to a dressmaker to make a dress for the wedding, for the bride or something. And two Polish people, three, walked in, and he said, "You move away from the Jewess. We're going to kill her." And she said, the dressmaker said, "Why? What for? What did she do?" So he killed both of them, the Polish one and the Jewish one. And the man was left without the bride. And that night, we were all together, huddled in one house, 75 of us, I don't know. Some of them were standing and watching the house on what do you call it? Someone watchman.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you call those people?
On guard.
Huh? Guard.
Yeah.
Guides.
Guard.
Guides.
Guard.
Guard.
Guarding the
On
area.
guard.
Yeah.
And the next morning, and they killed quite a few Jewish people because there was no police, not like an organized, and we all went to Bialystok. And in Bialystok, after a few weeks, a few months, I started going to a Polish school, and then they created a Jewish school by the name of Nachman Bialik, and I joined that school. And because I had a background, I remembered now, the background of Hebrew, and it took me a short time, and I was better than all of them because I went to Yavne, Lebanot, for girls. And Yavne, my father was a very close friend of the headmaster. And because my Hebrew we did all subjects in Hebrew. Maths and I was young. And we learned the Torah, we learned the Chumash and because my Hebrew was advanced compared to the others, I was chosen to make the speeches on stage. And Motel Kirchner, he was from Bialystok after the war. He remembers me. He told Jack, my son, that I was the actress on stage. I was dancing. Yes, and then there was a woman, a doctor, with her mother, who collected all orphans that survived the war, girls and boys, and they wanted to form an orphanage for children, for teenagers and for children in the, I don't know whether it's south or of Poland, Chorzów, I don't know if you know where the city is, and to train us to go to Palestine. And again, we started with Hebrew, and I was dancing, and I've got pictures of the dancing class, and I was good at gymnastics. Yeah, and then one day, one of the three brothers came. Everybody wants you back. Everybody is missing you, and they're crying. And Dina is crying for you. They want you to come back. And I said, I'm not coming back. I'm going to Palestine. I was trained to go to Palestine, And he said, I'm not leaving without you. I said, okay, let's go back to Bialystok. We came back to Bialystok, and that's when I fell in love with my husband. He was 12 or 13 years older than me. Yeah. In those days, it wasn't common, but it was quite common that a man should be older. In 1950, I married. 1915 would have been 70 years. Yeah. But he died 8 years ago. Yeah. He died because it wasn't a normal death. He went off the bus in Israel and he didn't look what's behind the bus, and the cars didn't stop behind the bus like here. And he crossed in front of the bus, and a car hit him, and he went with his head through the front windscreen. He fell on the bonnet, and he went with his head through the
Windshield.
window, and he had head injuries, and he gave me away at my wedding.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And his wife was staying with us for a year, as I told you. So I came with her, and I wanted to go to school, and my cousin's wife said, "You are 16 years old."
She sent you to learn millinery or something.
Huh?
Millinery.
Millinery. And you better learn a fach.
A trade.
A trade. And what did I do in the millinery? I made the cups of tea. I used to deliver the heads to society.
Yeah. It wasn't your thing.
Huh?
It wasn't your thing.
No, not my thing at all. Listen, in the society ladies lived around King's Cross.
Yes.
In those days, King's Cross wasn't the King's Cross it's today. It's and my cousin gave me a lift, and I had to walk a bit, and I went to work, and I delivered the heads to the society ladies. Sometimes they gave me a piece of cake, or they gave me a few shillings. I only earned
you said £1.50 or something.
£1.30.
30, yeah.
Three, 1.5. £1.10. £1.10 is
a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I used to travel, and my cousins lived in Chatswood, which is across the water. In North Sydney.
Yeah, North Shore.
North Shore. So it was a business. And then I started going to English lessons because I couldn't, if I can't go to school, I wanted to learn English. I couldn't, I mean, they were very, very gentle with me in the millinery shop. And they listened. I couldn't explain to them what happened to me.
They wouldn't have believed it anyway.
No, they wouldn't have believed it, no.
No.
So, yeah, they were very, very understanding. But after a while, I got sick and tired of traveling every time, especially late at night, coming with the autobus, with the bus, because there's no trams in Sydney. So my cousin found me a place in Bronte where I have a Jewish woman let me have a room, and when my girlfriends came, I made a few friends at the English lesson. She said, "You know, sugar is very expensive." So she begrudged me, you know, but I paid her, and my cousin's wife, the one that she already had a 5 or 6 year old boy.
Yes.
Nearly 6. And to me, it reminded me of my little brothers, and I was carrying him around. And now he's become a very...
How did you find the Australian people treated you? I mean, the Poles were very anti-Semitic, but how did you find the Australians when you came here?
Actually, I found such a difference. I'm especially a child that survived the war and the Holocaust.
Did they know anything about the Holocaust?
Not enough. Not enough. But they treated me actually with kindness. I went to Melbourne, and I could see it's a different world. A lot of newcomers, Polish newcomers.
Yes.
Sydney had German ones and Hungarian. Melbourne had, and some of them came on the same boat with me. 180 Jews came on my boat.
Yes. Migrant life in Australia generally. Talk about your life in Australia now, because that really is the largest part of life.
That's the largest. I made so many friends on the boat. They all knew me as an orphan, and I made many friends, and we traveled for 3 months. 3 months our ship went. And then I came to Australia.
It wasn't an ocean liner, was it? It was a cargo ship.
No, it was a cargo.
Yes.
Yeah. And we stopped in Tahiti. People greeted us with flowers, but not because we were. And we stopped in Panama, and the Jews in Panama gave us a very nice reception. We were probably the first people that they saw the Holocaust survivors.
Did you have, even though you'd left Europe by then, did you have bad dreams about the Holocaust?
I still did not believe that my parents were not alive. And that is when I was in Bialystok in school, and I used to go every day to the Judenrat, to the committee for Jewish.
The joint.
For the joint, yeah. And I used to wait for a telegram to come. My father knew I was in Bialystok, and my mother knew where I went. How is it possible? And all of a sudden, I see a telegram from my cousin that stayed with us.
She was the one in Sydney.
She's the one in Sydney.
Yep. She's
looking for her family, Feldman. And I got 2 brothers married 2 cousins.
Yes.
And I managed to, I didn't know what to do with myself all day long. So I used to go and meet. I used to go to the Feldmans, and they wanted to know how their daughter was in Kovno. She was with us a year. And I knew that they perished because the whole Bialystok was taken out on the 16th of August. They liquidated the ghetto. So I replied a telegram, nobody is alive. She was looking for her parents, and I said, nobody is alive. I'm the only one alive. She could not believe that this Schlemazel girl was alive, and her parents perished.
But I want to come back to your life in Australia now.
Yeah.
It was a big change.
A big change.
A big shift for you.
We used to go first before I got engaged. Yeah, my cousins, the woman, she got engaged to an older man. She was an old maid. She was engaged to an older man, and he treated her, no romance. And when she moved out of the Olenskis, I couldn't stay there because, with 3 men.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I had to find, and I found a place in a non-Jewish person. She was an Australian woman, had never had children, and my children, my 2 boys called her Nana.
Oh, yes. You said she became part of your life.
Yes, she became part of my life, and I'm not supposed to have anybody coming into the room. Yeah. But she was alcoholic. I don't know, as I get older, I'm leaning towards religion that I was taught as a child.
Where did you find the strength to rebuild your life? Because you really built a life.
Yes, I did. Yes.
Where did you find, what was in your mind? What were your thoughts? Did you feel like you had to do this for your parents? Or?
No, I felt that I had to have something of my own.
Right.
When Jack was born, there's nothing I wouldn't do for him, like my mother did for me. Yeah.
Do I have a message for the younger generation? Well, I think I'm proud to be a Jew, and I got to shul, and the rabbi, the new rabbi, Rabin, had the COVID, and he read my book, and he couldn't put it down, and he told me that's how he got to know me, through my book. And he said, and he picked me to speak for Tisha B'Av. And I'm proud to be a Jew, but I think it doesn't matter what the rest of the world says. I went through hard times, and I stayed Jewish, and it came back to me now, because my father was he was a very learned man in the Jewish. Yeah, he went to yeshiva, which is a famous yeshiva in Kaunas.
I really want to thank Luba so much for her time and sharing her thoughts with us and sharing her memories with us. It's been a wonderful experience, certainly for me, and I hope for anyone who listens to it. And if you want to learn more about Luba's amazing survival, this is her book, A Life Reclaimed. She's a very remarkable woman, well worth purchasing the book and reading it. And by the way, you can get it on Audible too. So if you don't want to read it, you can listen to it.
Thank you.